Hey, welcome to the channel, friends. As always, man, I am stoked to see you. So we're going to continue this mock board going on with drill and ceremony coming up. All right, so here we go. So again, I'm going to lead off with a question. I'm going to give you a little bit of a pause so you can hit the pause button and be able to answer the question. And then I'm going to give you the answer to that question. And as we're going, of course, this is TC 3-21.5 drill and ceremony, and you got to be able to answer those questions, right? And if you don't know the answer, then you want to be able to at least spit back, what regulation that you might be able to find that answer to. So I'm going to read through probably the top few questions that are standard, like the what is this or what is that kind of questions that are out there. And then I'm going to give you some situational questions at the end. So make sure you hang on for both of them. So who introduced drill and ceremony to the U.S. Army? The Prussian officer Baron von Steuben introduced drill and ceremony to the U.S. Army. When did von Steuben begin teaching drill and ceremony? That was back in February 1776. Valley Forge, by the way. And what was the first field manual commonly referred to as? What did von Steuben write? Of course, von Steuben wrote the Blue Book. What is the cadence of quick-time march? The cadence of quick-time march is 120 beats per minute. And what are the 3 steps used to provide instruction? There are 3 steps to provide instruction: is step by step, the talk through, and by the numbers. How many types of commands are there, and what are they? There are 2 types of commands: the preparatory command and the command of execution. What are the rest positions at the halt? The rest positions at the halt are parade rest, rest at ease, and stand at ease. Right, so what's the difference between at ease march and route step march? Right, so in at ease march, soldiers aren't required to keep cadence, but they must remain silent. Route step march, soldiers can talk and drink from their canteen. Right, so there are your top questions, your standard questions that you could be asked as it relates to drill and ceremony, or TC 3-21.5. And again, as you're answering a question, if you don't know the answer, then just refer back. First Sergeant, I did not know the answer at this time. However, I would refer back to TC 3-21.5. Something to that effect, right? We'll move on to some situational questions, and I'm not going to give you so much time to answer, as it will just be a conversation, between the 2 of us on these. So the first one is, you're assigned to teach a squad drill. How will you plan, prepare, execute, and assess the training? And this type of question could be asked for any number of things that are out there. And I think if we just slow things down, we can throw in some book answers. Whether we're talking about, step by step, talk through, or, by the numbers type of instruction. But, we have to understand, we need to, in order to plan, prepare, and execute. So I need to think about the 8-step training model. I need to think about troop leading procedures, when it comes to all these things. So I need to plan a time and place. And I need to make sure that my soldiers are all aware of the time and place. I need to make sure that I rehearsed and practice. I know I dug back into 3-21.5 because maybe the question is a little bit more specific, and it's dealing with maybe being part of a color guard. That makes kind of sense. I may need to do something that I don't normally or ordinarily do. So I dig back into the regulation and I make sure that I'm right with the Army. And then I rehearse and I practice and I get certified by my first line supervisor. I make sure I have an assistant instructor and that we walk through and that we're both G to G. I have a book, I have an outline, I have an agenda, I have an end state. And then for drill and ceremony, I'm going to go through step by step and by the numbers, right? And then we just break things down. It's going to relate to everything. And then how do you actually execute and assess? You execute by, again, using the step by step And then how do you assess? You make sure that you finish with an AAR and retrain as necessary. And so next situational question, right? Let's say you're down in the motor pool, right? And you're getting ready to take your Joes to chow, and you're going to go to the DFAC for lunch. And you tell them that you're going to march. And you tell them that you're going to march down there. And your soldier says, "Hey, Sergeant, man, it's 2020. Why are we marching?" What are you going to say? Or maybe it was from your cough area to the motor pool. But you're out there and you want to do the right thing and you want to march because you're in groups of 3 or more. So that's how we get around places, right? We don't drive everywhere, we march. The soldier says, why? Soldiers ask why all the time. And I think we have to be prepared to answer that question of why. And again, this is another type of question that could be asked of any number of scenarios or questions. And the root answer, I think, is probably the same in all of them. The answer to why is all of them. Is going to be too easy, but we need to be prepared because soldiers are going to ask us, why are we doing things? Task and purpose, right? And when we peel back the onion, we go right back into some basic things like, because we're disciplined, to execute professionalism, to show pride in our uniform. Because when we're moving in groups of 3 or more, we march, we don't walk. And you can always give this, start something off like this. Like if you want to give your board members, you start off with an at ease. Soldier, we're going to march because that's how soldiers do things. All kinds of ways you can answer these questions. But what you don't want to say is get drug into, especially in a board, and you get drug into now, or maybe that first sergeant that's CSM is actually, kind of pretending that they are the soldier, and they're the ones asking, well, why, Sergeant? Well, why, Sergeant? Well, why, Sergeant? And you're that sergeant trying to answer the question. You have to be able to maintain control of the situation. You cannot let the subordinate, even if in this case it's the first sergeant pretending to be a soldier, you can't let that first sergeant own you and get control of the scenario and control the conversation. So that's when you just look right at him and say, at ease. First sergeant, we're going to march from where I say to where we're going to go to because I said so, by authority of AR 600-20. We will execute good order and discipline. Do you have any other questions? And the first sergeant's going to say no. Be good stuff. But you got to be careful too, especially in a board. When is the last time that you inspected your team or section? Maybe it was when is the last time you inspected, uniforms? Like we do on Monday mornings or used to before COVID. Have an in-ranks inspection. When was the last time you inspected? This is something I was just talking about actually on this past Friday in my safety brief. It's like, sergeants, you have to get out there and inspect these things because just because we're not doing it as a normal battle rhythm at the company level doesn't mean that you shouldn't be doing it. In fact, you need to do it now more than ever because without being looked, soldiers are doing stupid things. And they're just becoming complacent on other things. Right? They don't have their pen, they don't have their paper, they don't have their dog tags, they don't have their ID card. They don't have something to write with, something to write on. They don't have their PT belt or their ACH readily available. Wet weather gear, depending on the time of year, right? So we need to make sure we're inspecting these things. So put this in your own battle rhythm. If you haven't inspected your dues in a while, then you can be honest. But hopefully you are inspecting your squad, your team, and maybe it's a once a week thing, and you formulate that into your answer. It's a battle rhythm event. Every Monday, as we get our 5988s to prepare to conduct PMCS, before we actually execute, I pull my team in and I put them in line and I formally inspect each service member as outlined in TC 3-21.5. Immediately after, I go ahead and I bring my soldiers back in, conduct an AAR with them, and then I pass out my 5988s, and we get ready to conduct the business of the day, or the plan of the day. That would be a way. Hey, let me know what you think about the standard questions and the situational questions. If you get some more questions to throw in on this one, make sure you leave them down below, and we will keep this conversation rolling. Hope you enjoyed the content. If you did, make sure you like it, subscribe to the channel, and click the notification bell so you can stay up to date on some future content. As always, until then, you keep grinding.